FedEx is an agentic enterprise that operates on a global scale. But even with small business customers signing up around the world, they had a challenge. Customer signing up is not the same as a customer actively shipping. And let's face it, FedEx doesn't make money when a customer is signing up. They're making money when a customer is shipping. They had disconnected shipping data from marketing data, so it was really challenging for them to see the complete view of their customers, and that was slowing down sales. But with Data 360, with intelligent context, and with Agentforce, they were able to get a complete view of their customer. They were able to take those dormant customers and they were able to turn them into active shippers. They did this with Data 360, the next generation of Data Cloud, unifying your enterprise data, your customer data, your unstructured data through zero copy. And what's more is that now Data 360, it stores your Agentforce conversations, your customers' preferences, and that gives your agents memory. One more thing that Data 360 does, and this is one of my personal favorites, is data governance is not an afterthought with Data 360. Your compliance teams are going to love this, and I'm actually an ex-IT auditor, so I love this, is that when you create compliance policies and governance policies, they're applied to all of your data automatically. Now, we know that agents, they need data, but more than data, they need context. That's what helps them be intelligent. But in most enterprises, that's actually very, very difficult. The same data, it sits in your lake, it sits over here in a warehouse, it sits in a business system, and how many different formats are there for date? And you have to try to reconcile all of this. Well, Informatica, it brings cataloging, it brings lineage, data lineage, and Informatica brings a golden record. Now, there's one other thing that agents can benefit from. Agents rely on signals. They rely on signals from your systems. Think of a signal like, in the case of FedEx, a shipment that's running late or it's delayed. Well, MuleSoft, what it does, it connects all of your systems to be able to surface all of these operational signals. And those signals trigger your agents to take secure action. And Data 360, well, Data 360, it wraps it all around. It unifies your data, and it brings trusted, governed, and intelligent context to every single one of your agents and your applications. So let's do a double click on Data 360 specifically through a demo. And to do that, please welcome again Kristen and Abby. Perfect. Now, I had shared with you that FedEx had a challenge. They had all these dormant customers, and we needed to turn them into active shippers. Well, we solved that problem with Data 360, but they had a new problem, but it was a good problem. The problem was they started getting a lot of questions from customers now that they were shipping. Questions like this one: what's the best way to ship a 70-pound box of wholesale electronics from Austin to London? You'd think that's kind of easy. That should be a simple question. But the reality is the answer is very, very complex, because it depends on the delivery zone, it depends on the shipping services, import, export, or any other nuances that are very specific to that delivery. Well, as a FedEx seller, what I have access to is through Slack, I can access Agentforce. That's how I can answer all of these questions at scale. So I jump in and I ask Agentforce the question that the customers asked me: what's the best way to ship this box? Now, Agentforce provides a response. Excellent, but it's not very helpful. Because instead of giving me the answer, what Agentforce is doing, it's telling me to reference a 200-page PDF. All right, let's humor it. Let's check out that PDF. It's a good-looking PDF, but when I'm scrolling down, I can see there's a table, there's charts, there's headers, there's footers, there's an index, there's a lot. Now, I can process this. I can understand this because that's a human skill. I can understand that this is a chart, that's a table. I can see the symbols and I can see the index key. That's easy for me to understand. But when you take a document like this, an unstructured PDF, and you process it or upload it the traditional way, you know what happens? It gets completely flattened. It turns into raw text. In this raw text, it's losing all of the meaning. Let's find that same line. So we can see England over here. We see England, we see UK, we see D. What does D mean? We knew through the PDF, we could see that D was the zone. We could see that the check marks were what were the services that were available within that zone. But now it's flattened. So it's very challenging for an agent to be able to understand this and make meaning and context of it. Well, this is why we are introducing intelligent context, Data 360 intelligent context. Because now, when we take an unstructured PDF like this and we upload it, what happens is we get intelligent chunks. We can start to see all of the pieces of that PDF logically parsed out into an index. We scroll down, we find that same entry. You know what we see? We can see that it is England. We can see that it's Zone D. We can see the export and import laws and all of the standards that apply. This becomes a meaningful slice of information that an agent can use to reason. But before we put this back into production, let's do a quick test. So we're still within Data 360. We're going to ask Agentforce that question one more time. Now that we've uploaded this document using intelligent context, look at that. We get a response. We get a response that's accurate and that's complete. It's not referencing me to the PDF anymore. But it does look like Agentforce is being a little too generous because it's also exposing some internal FedEx employee contact details. The reason why that's happening is because that PDF, it's not an external document, it's an internal document. So that's okay to have internal contact details for an internal document, but that's not something we accidentally want exposed to a customer. Well, like Ed said earlier, the inner auditor in me is geeking out right now because with data governance, it's built in. We can create a policy right here. And instead of having to do many keystrokes to be able to configure that policy, with Agentforce embedded within Data 360, all we do is use natural language to describe the policy that we want to create. In this case, it's a masking policy. We want to hide that information so that it doesn't get exposed to a customer. Agentforce does the work for us. We just validate that it's the right policy. We hit activate. Now that we've got this policy activated, let's jump right back into production. So as a FedEx seller, I am going to ask that question one more time. What's the best way to ship a 70-pound wholesale electronics box from Austin to London? And this time, Agentforce delivers. The answer is complete, it's accurate, and most of all, it's appropriate. It's not exposing any sensitive information. And this is how FedEx has been able to take their seller productivity and reach it to a new level by taking raw data, converting that data into context, and context into intelligence. Thank you.